Hey, welcome to this Money Monday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. I'm John Tobacco. We're coming today live to kick off another week, as we do every single day, noon to 2 Eastern, from the Question Tequila Studios. We're in the downtown Liquid Lunch Outpost. Yep, we're still on Broadway, right downtown, and right down the street here is the New York Stock Exchange to kick off this week, which I expect to be a monster week for the markets. Let's take a look at the Dow Jones Industrial Average, up 70 this morning. As I mentioned last week when we peaked our head above 29,000. Didn't close above there on Friday, which would have been magnificent. But it looks like this week we're poised to get above that 29,000 mark, and 30,000 is right out there on the horizon. There's a couple of treasury auctions, some short-term treasury auctions today. Unless something crazy happens with China, I think we're in a good geopolitical space right now, and I expect to see this Dow over 30,000, which would be great news for me, for you, and your portfolios. Bitcoin is above 8,000. I mentioned today in my newsletter, the Monday Morning Quarterback, which many of you have subscribed to. Thank you so much. You should be getting it in your email boxes as we speak. But I mentioned on the cryptocurrency front, below 7,000, there are some dangers. It's been establishing a range up a little bit higher, and 8,000 seems to be the new norm. Above 8,500 could bring 10,000 into your sights. But stay nimble. If it goes under 77,000, it could be a drop all the way down to 5. It might be a buying opportunity there. I'll keep you posted on that. Keeping me posted on everything that's happening in the news and around the world. My co-host, my right-hand man, Frank Morano, is over in the Frank Zone. Frankie, how are you?
I'm doing great, John. Happy Monday. How was your weekend?
Happy Monday to you. My weekend was fantastic. We surprised my daughter, Victoria. Her 21st birthday is rapidly arriving on February 10th. But before all our friends went back to school, we threw a big surprise party for her on Friday night. Everyone was shocked, amazed, thrilled. We had so much fun. The whole family was there. All her friends were there. And it was a monumental
She's 21 years
experience.
old?
She will be very shortly.
Very nice.
And she is the model of a child that a parent would want at 21 years old.
Now, well, thankfully she took after her mother, if that's the case.
That's probably
now she's old enough to finally appear on Liquid Lunch, right?
Yeah, well, let's hope. Let's hope we can get her down here one of these days. But what else is happening in the news and around the world,
obviously,
Frankie?
the breaking news within the last hour, and I know you're going to get into it in a big way with two seasoned political professionals coming up in just a few minutes, but the big political news is that Cory Booker, New Jersey's senior senator, has dropped out of the presidential race. It's a race that didn't...
Another one bites the dust.
Another one
bites the dust.
I guess he's actually technically New Jersey's junior senator. I guess Menendez is senior in longevity, if not in terms of stature. So there you go.
I mean, I mentioned this before. I went to Cory Booker's first fundraiser when he was the mayor of Newark. I went to his first ever fundraiser to run for Senate. And everyone was looking at him as like the golden boy, and I still say till today, that's when he peaked. And I don't think he's ever really been a presidential candidate. I think he's been knocking around, vying for, maybe a vice president role or maybe, some kind of cabinet.
There was a couple of weeks there where it looked like he had a glimmer of hope. But big question here. So Cory Booker, obviously African-American, was not able to make any headway with the black voters in South Carolina. And very much the candidate of Wall Street and Bain Capital, kind of the corporate Democrats, the Romney-style Democrats. I do wonder if they will go to the last major African-American...
He was coming into the race. I pointed out to the viewers that any Google search you attempt on Deval Patrick to hear about him and Bain Capital gives no results. When Obama was running for president, his PAC was running all kinds of crazy ads against Bain Capital and saying how evil they were and how Mitt Romney's Bain Capital cost all these American jobs and everything else. You can't find, they've been scrubbed from the internet.
Interesting.
But don't forget, Deval Patrick followed in Mitt Romney's footsteps, and he's been running Bain Capital.
Well, and he was also governor of Massachusetts, much like Governor Romney.
Ta-da.
The interesting thing with Deval Patrick, first of all, I don't get the sense that anybody knows who he is, first of all. A Democrat, Republican, Independent. I see no, forget about groundswell of support, I see no groundswell of recognition for Deval Patrick. He did raise $2.2 million in 6 weeks, and Iowa has so few people, maybe, since Mike Bloomberg's not competing in Iowa, maybe he can just pay enough voters directly in Iowa to caucus for him.
Are you allowed to do that in
I don't
Iowa?
think so.
Can you pay for votes?
I don't think so. Only in
can't.
Atlantic City.
But you can't do that in Iowa.
No,
I don't
think you can
see
do that
Deval Patrick making any effort. I would say probably most of that couple $1 million came from secret Obama supporters like Bill Ayers and others from the Chicago and Illinois machine. And I think secretly behind the scenes, Obama is going to try to push Deval Patrick into this thing in a big way.
Well, it's certainly going to be interesting to see what happens. Well, we're going to be covering that and a lot of other breaking news throughout the course of the program. But that is not, however, what I am speaking, frankly, about. Well, John, it gives me no pleasure at all to be doing this same, frankly speaking, commentary again, because you may find it repetitive, and so do I. But unfortunately, we now know the identity of two soldiers who were killed in Afghanistan this weekend. They're Army airborne troops Ian McLaughlin from Virginia and Miguel Villalon from Illinois. They were killed in a roadside bomb on Saturday in Kandahar. These are Afghanistan. Last year, John, we saw the deadliest year in Afghanistan in the last 5 years. My question is, this is already the longest war in American history. What the hell are we still doing in Afghanistan? Everybody now acknowledges that whenever we leave, whether we leave tomorrow or 5 years from now, whatever replaces the American presence, the Taliban is going to be playing a big role. We're negotiating with the Taliban. The Taliban says we can't have any deal with the Americans until American troops leave. President Trump is saying, well, whether we get a deal with the Taliban or not, we may have to draw down troops anyway. There's no clear military objective at all in Afghanistan. There should be no reason for us to continue to lose these brave American servicemen for a war that has long ceased to function in any meaningful way. We destroyed the Taliban government that was harboring al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden is dead. A lot of the key al-Qaeda training facilities in Afghanistan are rubble. Let's leave and let the elected government of Afghanistan deal with things as they will. If it ends up in some sort of power sharing agreement with the Taliban, I'm sorry, but the United States cannot stay there for decades. The longest war in American history that nobody seems to know why we're still fighting. How do you ask an American serviceman and his family to be the last soldier to die for a mistake?
Lieutenant Colonel Dan Davis has been telling us for months now that we don't have a specific objective anymore in Afghanistan, and we should just hightail it right out of there.
Well,
so
I don't think it's worth. Colonel Douglas Macgregor has said it. Andrew Basevich, who actually lost a son in Iraq, who I believe was a major in the Army, he said it. I don't know. And this is a month ago, John, we did the story of the Washington Post publishing that trove of interviews that shows almost every American leader in the Pentagon in 3 different presidential administrations lying to the public about the progress we were making, or more accurately, not making in Afghanistan. What are we still doing there? I don't know how they're, in France, they protest if you raise the price of gasoline a nickel. Where are the protests in this country saying get out of Afghanistan?
Well, we see it
the president kills a terrorist, and they're ready to riot.
Well, they can't decide. The Democrats in Congress can't decide what they want anymore because they want us to get out of Syria. Then they get mad when the president says he's pulling the troops out of Syria. They want us out of Iraq. The Iraqis say they're kicking us out, so maybe Trump will pull out of that. Now they're mad that we've got the terrorists and it got us kicked out of Iraq. Meantime, that's what they want. I can't even get my head around it other than to think the president is doing a great job and he took a terrible, God-forsaken Satan doer off the earth that has killed hundreds, if not thousands, of Americans and others across the Middle East for a 30-year reign of terror. And Frankie, I'm with you. We should be pulling the troops back here to America, because if the country keeps going in the direction that some states are going in right now, we're going to need martial law here very soon. I want to finish this segment talking about this new craze that seems to be going across the nation here in New York and New Jersey and California. It's happening in other places. Bail reform, where many of these Democratic legislatures are deciding that cash bail is unfair to the impoverished, and you basically can commit a crime. And if it's nonviolent, and if you see the list of nonviolent crimes, you wouldn't believe it, including sexually harassing kids. But you can rob a bank without a gun and get set free within 12 hours. And right here in New York, one hard-working criminal was laughing his way all the way to the bank when he went on a spree and robbed 4 different banks. Frankie, this guy robbed 4 different banks, okay? Gerard Woodbury, he allegedly robbed these banks using a note rather than a gun, and in New York and other places in the country, no matter how many times he strikes, they cannot hold him because his alleged larcenies are classified as non-violent felonies.
So, see, this is why people really should watch this show. Do you see what you learn on this show? For all of you criminals watching, if you just want to remain at large and continue committing more crimes,
come to New York.
You now know that you only have to do 2 things. 1, come to New York. 2, leave your gun home in wherever state you
Pass
are.
a note
so
to the
wherever
teller.
you're watching, our politicians have clearly sent you a message. Come to New York. You see, I wear this.
It's happening in New Jersey, Frankie.
I love New York lapel pin. You can steal this from me, and as long as
Nothing
you do it
can
without
happen.
a gun, go ahead.
The
Touche
funniest
salute.
thing, Buzz, so they now, let's do a pop quiz. If you rob 4 banks and you get caught, you pick up $4,000, you got the money in the bank, in your home, under your mattress, wherever you got it, and they release you in 12 hours, what do you think the next thing the bank robber is going to do? He's going to go right back to the cookie jar, and lo and behold, he got released, and then just a day later, he went out and robbed the 5th bank.
And lest anyone think that this event that John is describing is an isolated incident, there was another story on Friday of a homeless gentleman who'd been arrested multiple times for assault. And even that was considered an offense not worthy of bail.
No
reform.
deadly weapon. Right. Well, I just want to let you know how crazy it's gotten. And if you think it's absolutely insane, the insanity was not lost on the actual suspect of the 5 bank robberies right here in New York, who, when interviewed by the New York Post, said this. Gerard Woodbury said, "I can't believe they let me out," he marveled as he retrieved his vouchered property at one police plaza. What were they thinking? And NYPD Commissioner Dermot Shea, with his hands tied behind his back, in a frustrated voice, said, "What motivation does this suspect have to return to court? And this makes cops' jobs harder and makes New Yorkers less safe."
Very true. One other item of breaking news before we go to break,
bizarre
John.
stuff
Breaking just in the last few minutes. Queen Elizabeth II is agreeing to let Prince Harry and Meghan Markle move part-time to Canada, but she says that she would have preferred they remained full-time royals.
Fantastic. All right. Well, look, we'll keep you updated on Megxit and all that good stuff, and we'll keep you up on what's happening with the Harvey Weinstein trial with one of my favorite attorneys on the earth, and my good friend Matthew Mary joins us right here in studio right after this.